price of Bitcoin is in free fall. Guys, in this video, we're going to dive down into the charts, take a look at what is going on with BTC, have a look at some news and see what exactly is going on with this pullback. Guys, as we get into it, if you find it useful and informative, hit that like button. Really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with all that said, done and out of the way, let's actually jump on down to the desktop and take a look at what is going on here with BTC. Okay guys, so we're here just on our hourly chart and we can kind of review, what's kind of been going on here. So we had the highs today. This is around, actually this is yesterday, sorry. So about 6 o'clock yesterday evening, we had the highs achieved. Okay, then we started to see a small kind of pullback. Now, this actually came in at a high of $50,777 to the penny. Okay, we've been talking about Bitcoin manipulation and there's a lot kind of going on there, but obviously we do start to see this pullback, right? And one of the main things about yesterday was getting that weekly close candle above that Gaussian channel. We'll get into that in a moment as well. But obviously, as you can see, we started to come down into this bit of a free fall motion. We've recently just come down here in the last hour to a low point, if I actually just bring this up, at 45,672.75. So not an exact number. Okay, so it's interesting to see that that was not planned as such. So it's important that we know the kind of, the direction that things are kind of going in. And, we do have a little bit of news going on in the background as to why this was occurring, right? But we can see it is impulsive in nature. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a fifth wave down. Okay, so we know it's impulsive in its nature. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're first of all going to cover this part here off, right? Bitcoin price slips below 47Ks as stock crypto prepares for this week's FOMC meeting. Okay, so basically Bitcoin bulls are once again on the defensive foot after a breakout momentum puts the price above 50K at the weekend. That was absolutely vital to get that Gaussian channel and that weekly close candle in the right position. As many of you people will know, we have obviously been covering that that journey of Bitcoin on that weekly chart every single week for a few weeks now. So it's important that we do acknowledge that. We'll have a look at the chart in a moment as well. So analysts say that the slight pullback in equities markets and upcoming Federal Open Market Committee meeting are the primary reasons for the December 13th pullback, and a few suggest that a revisit of the low area of 42K could be on the cards, right? Something that has come up a few times. I think basically if you drop down lower than 42K, that invalidates a lot of different charting patterns that have been forming. So we have to be a little bit careful around a few things here. But there is good news, and I'll get into that in a moment as well. But basically the Fed tapering talks, put pressure on the market. The current headwinds facing Bitcoin are in large part being influenced by regulatory matters in the US, okay, as highlighted in recent reports by a few people in the space as well. I think ultimately, though, we take a look at it, things are looking bullish ultimately in the bigger pictures, and we'll get into that in a moment as well. So yeah, it's interesting kind of reasoning behind why, or people's kind of rationale as to why this is going on. Obviously, if you're actually familiar with the data here, you can see that we've been heavily manipulated for quite some time on the charts, right? And we'll actually do a whole video on this, but there's so many price points that are basically directly to the penny, and this is at support level and resistance level, that the market is being pushed and pulled in very specific directions. I don't think this is any coincidence either. We had the weekly close exactly where it needed to be, and obviously now we are in a pretty interesting position. So as we come up into our weekly chart here, we're actually going to jump over into Bitstamp rather than Binance, because this allows us to get that bigger view over the years, right? So we can see that whole entire breakdown. Now, for those who are unfamiliar, we use the Gaussian channel. This is a series of moving averages ultimately, but there's a pretty good indication of where we actually get confirmation of a bear market versus a bull run, right? If we're above the Gaussian channel, we're in a bull run. If we slip into or below, we are in a bear market, right? So very important that we understand that this is what's happened previously, and every time we've slipped into the Gaussian channel, it has led to a significant pullback. Okay, now what does that mean? Well, it means that we want to make sure that we stay out of the Gaussian channel if we want the bull run to continue for Bitcoin. Okay, now here, as I expand this up, we can see that we can wick inside it, but we cannot close inside it. Okay, this is very, very important. Now, right now, we are technically inside the Gaussian channel. And if we were to come down into that 42K area, we are, well firmly inside the Gaussian channel. Now, the good news is that, ultimately we are Monday. We've got an entire week to get out of the Gaussian channel. And I think that is something that is very, very manageable, right? We've done this once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7th time. This is the 7th time we've been in here, and we can get out once again. What we are seeing, though, is basically constantly being kind of held down in a very specific area to shake out retail investors, to shake out people from the space, so that when Bitcoin eventually does move back up, there's a lot more FOMO going back into Bitcoin, basically, at a higher price. So you got shaken out lower, you invest higher, and eventually you'll get shaken out again. That's kind of the idea here behind some of these institutions. The best thing to do is actually stay ahead of the game. Okay, so it's important that we understand what's going on with the Gaussian channel, on with the weekly chart. Now, when I actually take this and I zoom out a little bit further, there's a few things that are really important to acknowledge, right? On this weekly chart here, we can see some pretty interesting values that are being hit on our stochastic RSI. Now, down here, this is basically the start of the bull run. We can see this with a confirmation of actually going above the Gaussian channel, right? This was actually late 2019, okay? We actually got that confirmation up here around July of 2019. Then obviously we slip into 2020. And basically what we actually saw was the pandemic, which brought us in. Okay, so without that, I think we're tracking relatively okay. And then we basically got that fresh start to the bull run. Okay, now this is important because every time we take a look at these really low areas, we can see, if I actually just take this area here, for example, and this area, we can see that we were oversold, and we were oversold down here. Okay, we then had this good run to the upside, and we basically had that kind of dip right in the middle just there. And this is basically coming in on this oversold area. Actually, it's more about here. Okay, and then basically we continue that run to the upside. We go back into this oversold area during that fourth wave correction that we've been talking about. We're back up into overbought, setting those all-time highs, and right now we're back down here in this oversold area. So the expectation is to eventually actually get this thing moving nicely to the upside, right? But for that to happen, we need to kind of be free of some of the manipulation, some of the shaking out of the market. Now, ultimately, altcoins are absolutely getting wrecked now, specifically in comparison to, Bitcoin, right? If you start using Bitcoin as a pair against altcoins, you can see how wrecked some of those altcoins absolutely are. A lot of retail investors are being shaken out, they're being liquidated, and they're being stomped out of their positions, whether that is stop losses or using leverage. And this is the aim of the game. They're basically trying to shake out as much of the money as possible out of the market before they actually go ahead and take this thing to the next level. Okay, and I do anticipate that is going to be 2022. Okay, so ultimately, it's really important that we acknowledge what's going on here with the weekly chart. It's a big chart, has a lot kind of going for it, and right now it's actually looking pretty bullish. Even though we're pulled into the Gaussian channel at the beginning of the week, we've got 6 more days to get through to get us out of here. Knowing that we are oversold in the way that we are likely to push this significantly to the upside over the next several weeks, basically leading to new all-time highs, very, very significant all-time highs. Okay, so right now this isn't bothering me. We've been lower than this. Going down to 42k would be worrisome. As long as it doesn't happen towards the end of the week, we have a very good shot at actually moving our way back up towards those higher areas and out of the Gaussian channel. Really, we're trying to stay above the 47k area. That's going to be the main thing for us. Okay, so for Bitcoin right now, that's really interesting. So as I said earlier, if I actually bring this down onto our weekly chart, we'll load up our Binance data. We'll turn that Gaussian channel off here. And what we can actually see is, that impulsive move to the downside. We are already oversold on this hourly. We are oversold on the 4 hourly. We are heading to oversold on the 8 hourly. And the hourly, the daily is also just coming up from that oversold area, most likely to be pulled back down. Now, on our daily chart, it's also worth knowing there is a head and shoulder pattern. I do not think this is going to play out, and I think this is actually being forced into a pattern, because what we see is a lot of manipulation around the pricing, kind of creating this kind of pattern here. I wouldn't be too surprised if we started to see this thing come down, a lot more people shorting it, and actually it reverses all of a sudden to the upside. I'm very skeptical over this particular pattern. It doesn't align to the bullish nature of the weekly chart, and because if this actually does play out and we do see a slip down here into this right hand shoulder low, this is actually going to be a big bear signal, taking us significantly lower than 38K, right? That's going to break that neckline completely, and we'll see a very sharp decline in Bitcoin, but also the altcoins, triggering a bear market that would last multiple years. Okay, this isn't a short-term thing. It's really important that we hold some very key levels for the bigger picture. Okay, and if this pattern actually plays out, it would break the bigger picture down to a place where you would actually trigger a bear market, which is the dangerous game that is currently being played right now with that Gaussian channel. So it's really important that we do understand that although we're pulling down now, I think this is short term and we are likely to push up before the weekly close candle comes in again. And that is going to have a huge impact on, again, keeping us stable and keeping the bull market kind of running for a few more weeks. Ultimately, like I said before, I do expect that we are going to see Bitcoin and the altcoins reach new all-time highs in 2022. We are just in this middle of the kind of a bit of volatility, a little bit of manipulation, whilst basically the institutions, whether that's market makers, whales, etc., are just shaking out the last few paper hands out in the space. So guys, I am going to leave the video there. Hopefully you have found it useful and informative. There's a lot going on with Bitcoin. I don't think any of it is actually major. I think this is actually short term and, again, more manipulation. So again, I'm not being shaken out of the market. We need to see the weekly close candle inside the Gaussian channel, and in doing that, you would get a confirmation of a bear market signal that would actually potentially be triggering a multi-year period of downward direction. So if you have found it useful, hit the like button. I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with everything that's going on in here at Cheeky Crypto. With that said, done and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.